So today's video is going to be a little different, much like everything I've been posting recently, but this is more of a challenge video for me and my game design, in essence. But this was inspired by NPC Core, and so I have its table of contents pulled up here. I look at NPC Core as bestiary : humanoids. So if you are running a game where you are using a lot of humanoid enemies, a lot of humanoid NPCs, and you want generic stat blocks for them, this book is a great pickup. You should get NPC Core because it's legitimately very helpful in giving you all these generic stat blocks so you don't need to spend time making basic NPCs. But there's still some tips and tricks for making advanced NPCs. And now a lot of these will just be things I've kind of already covered up here, and you can watch my video on how to make custom creatures in PF2E, and NPCs are basically just an offshoot of that, where they tend to be more humanoid. You may throw in a couple abilities that would be normally shown on a class, so you can rip off player character stuff and give it to NPCs to, like, evoke, ooh, this one's like a thief, so I'm gonna give them sneak attacks that players go, oh, that's like a rogue thing, okay. That's really all there is to it, to making an NPC in terms of mechanics. My goal is to make an NPC that is interesting in terms of story and has that story reflected in their stat block. And I'm going to just take you through the design process of making this NPC. In order to do this, I'm going to pick a section of the NPC gallery, which is, again, here. This is like all your generic NPC types. They also have like ancestry types, but we're going to roll up one of these. We're going to see what creatures already exist, and then we're going to make a named custom one that fits in that faction and can be used as a leader for a, let's say, mid-level game. I think I did enough introing, so let's go and generate that random number. There are 21 different options, so I'm going to click generate. Number 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Martial artist. So we're immediately looking to go more monk-like. So I'm going to go read up these stat blocks and come back with my thoughts. Oh, also, because I forgot to mention this in the first version of the intro, I did get a free review copy of the book, but I legitimately think that if you are into having physical monster manuals or looking through PDFs, and you prefer that format to Archives of Nethys, and you are in a financial position to where you can buy a book, I think this is a great option if you want a bunch of NPC stat blocks for your game. All right, so here are the martial artist stat blocks that were given by the book. Now, mind you, all of the sections have basically this level of detail. This was picked fully at random. I know, content creator. I could have just simply edited out all the times I didn't get martial artist, but no, this is first take. You're just gonna need to hashtag trust me, bro. That's all it comes down to. But basically, they're monk-likes. They have a lot of abilities that will seem familiar if you know what monks do, like Flurry of Blows. Yeah, that's a monk thing. Fancy footwork is interesting. It's not normally monk ability, but you know, being able to step in stride to better close in on people, that makes sense. Has a move speed similar to what a monk would have at this level. Fist does d6 of damage like a monk. Powerful fist like a monk. Has hand wraps. You know how that sentence ends. I don't need to say it out. Interesting note is that the whiz save is a bit lower than a natural monk would have, because this numbers here, that will save is as if you're only trained in will. Monk player characters are normally expert in will, but like, this is NPC-ified where you have slightly deflated defenses, generally. And then you have tournament combatant, which is you add more monk abilities, like flying attack is really similar to flying kick. Somersault attack, I think there's a similar feat to this in the acrobat archetype. And Work of the Crowd is completely unique. It is basically a one-action self-cast haste, because you're riding off of the crowd cheering for you. So a lot of NPC stat blocks will actually do this, where to make them best in their element, they get a unique bonus if they are in the scenario that they are meant to be best at. And so Tournament Combatant is best at like the gladiatorial type of fights, where there is an audience and spectators that can cheer you on, and thus motivate you to go faster. Mixed Martial Artist shows how you do a stance shifting character. Most of the time, if you want a character to just be in a stance, You just write out stance attacks instead of fist, but this is a very interesting way to do stances on an NPC creature. They are a lot less wordy than player character stances, but you know, they have some pretty nice bonuses like this +2 to grapple attempts. Just saying. By the way, the maximum a player character can get without like some kind of extraneous bonus is 18 at this level for like an athletics check. Because you get like +1 from lifting belt, 4 from stat, 6 from master proficiency, and 7 from level. So this creature is 1 below that in the normal case, and then with this +2 to bonus here, it goes up to 19, which puts it 1 above. So if you're in the right stance, you're 1 above a normal player character in doing that maneuver. And when you're outside of that stance, it's 1 below. I think that makes a ton of sense from like a flavor perspective. The big thing note here is that they stance shift and the numbers are lining up with what player characters would do. That's like the big thing of note. Now, black belt, you start to get a lot more interesting stuff. You can see they have this new thing of rapid barrage, where it is in cap, and they just do against one target. If more than one strikes hit, they combine damage. That's pretty standard for multi-attack abilities. Yeah, so then they can also make you clumsy and stunned with this flurry of attacks, which makes sense. That feels very monk-like. That feels like big monk ability. So, yeah, I approve. Yeah, blocking counterattack also makes sense. And it's on targeting, so it works like Rogue's, let's name that ability. Something dodge. Rogue has a dodge ability that does a similar +2 bonus when you get targeted. I'll put it on screen. I don't know. I know it's out there. So this one also lets you make a strike off turn, which is pretty normal. Generally, when you have a higher level creature, you want to give them a decently impactful reaction so that they continue to feel like a threat outside of their turn. And because this creature has an in-cap ability, you're more encouraged to use it as a boss fight rather than a bunch of them in like a normal fight. And that makes sense for a black belt. Then you have the Grandmaster, where you have a whole bunch of stuff, like you have Forbidden Palm, which is one of several forbidden abilities that they give in this book, but that's next section. And it lets them cast Touch of Death, but they take damage in doing so, which is really neat. We don't see a lot of self-damage abilities in Pathfinder 2e, so this is very interesting. 1mm Punch is a monk ability, so this is pretty expected. Disrupt Chi also makes sense for like a monk ability. I think there was something similar. Might have been a Chi spell, not sure. Yeah, the numbers just kind of make sense. But you can see there's a lot of monk-like abilities throughout this. That's really the moral. And there are alternate moves, so it says, ooh, this is what you do to swap stuff around. And I'm just going to go over the alternate moves that inspired me for the creature we're about to make. And these come from the Dirty Fighting section, where we have stuff like Illegal Bite and Sand in Your Eye. Illegal Bite makes you make athletics checks and fortitude DCs, and on a success, you get to do some damage. And Sand in Your Eye is when you faint, you get to also blind them until they use an interact action. What I'm thinking is let's give them reactive strikes, so when they rub their eyes to remove the blinded condition, I get a free shot. Because that's what Dirty Fighting means to me. So I'm going to lean very fighter-like instead of very monk-like as a way to differentiate this one from the rest of the martial artists. And I think that in the story, this would be a bad guy character and really would play more the role of a heel in wrestling, if you know what I'm talking about there. And so they'd likely be fighting a tournament combatant that the party wants to help win as like a side quest. And so the tournament combatant fights very cleanly, works the crowd and goes off the crowd's cheers. So I think that our heel character should find joy in the crowd's boos somehow. And it should be one level up on our protagonist character. So that way they need to find some kind of way for the protagonist character to beat their big villain bully character. And I think that would be a fun plot line in just like a random game. So with that, we are now going to start working on building out our heel. I'm coming back with a progress update because, well, I noticed a few things that are odd about how the NPCs are built. And I'm going to first point out the strike accuracy is plus 14, and the damage is a d8 plus 5. Okay, fine. That seems fair enough. But then I started looking at the actual charts. So the accuracy is somewhere between high and moderate. That means you are slightly below fighter accuracy, above the accuracy of a normal monk. That feels fine. Then you look at their damage numbers. Wait, that's low damage. On average, they should be doing like 11-ish damage per hit at that level. But this creature, 4.5 plus 5, 9.5 damage per hitting strike. So the martial artist stat blocks, that is kind of a theme that continues throughout them. Their damage numbers are undertuned. And so in my mind, this is because a lot of the martial arts competitions are usually getting the hit, getting first blood, whatever. And they usually aren't about like actually beating your opponent until they are unconscious, which is what hit points represent. And so I wanted the heal to still fit in with this kind of numbers, so I made the heal's damage numbers also lower to better match up with what they have for the tournament combatant and the mixed martial artist. Mixed martial artist does go up to 2 dice, especially in Thrashing Barrage. So I'm still between, like, should I go 1d8 here or should I go 2d6? I think I'm gonna go 2d6 because this is more of a, like, reasonable threat going too far. So I think this extra die represents that well enough. In terms of other abilities, I'm ripping a ton of stuff from Fighter, as I mentioned in the preview. Something Intimidating Strike, because this guy hitting you so hard that you become afraid, feels right for the wheelhouse. Knockdown, because hitting you so hard you fall on your butt, feels right and in the wheelhouse. Combat Grab, because, I mean, it's combat grab. If you're dirty fighting, going bop, and then you're in a grapple, that feels dirty fighting. And then Pocket Sand from the, like, actual dirty fighting moves. That way they then rub their eyes and interact so you can get off reactive strike and cheap shots as they clear the sand out of their eyes. That's the goal. But this will be a lot of words, and Combat Grab has its own, like, special things that you need to worry about. So I'm going to get rid of both Knockdown and Combat Grab and do this in a way more NPC way, which is, not that, plus grab, or plus Knockdown. Now they will either make a grapple attempt or a trip attempt without multi-attack penalty, and this costs an action, so it puts them at about the right action cost for that. So they go for Pocket Sand into a punch, and then have the punch go into a grappling move. And then the grappling move stops them from being able to wipe the sand out of their eyes. Intimidating Strike is just there, so that there's like this element of fear built in, because it feels right. Let me go quickly grab the text of Intimidating Strike. I feel like Pocket Sand should also be Manipulate, so I'm going to do that. Because, I mean, if you're reaching your pocket, grab the sand. But anyway, Intimidating Strike is now written in, and this is basically how I'd leave the stat block. It's very short, but when it comes down to it, I think this is all you really need to get the idea across. And if you want to use this as a bad guy in your campaign, I will have a link to this stat block in the description below. Thank you, Paizo, for sending me a review copy of NPC Core. This is how you can expand from it, use its ideas to make your own stuff. So yeah. That's the video. The video's over now. You can